Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. And today, we'll be taking a look at the White Walkers, which are a supernatural humanoid species featured in the outstanding HBO series, Game of Thrones, which was based on the books by George R.R. Martin. I'm going to issue a spoiler alert here, so if you're not up to date with the latest Game of Thrones, please finish it before continuing this video. Now, the White Walkers were essentially an ancient race of humanoid ice creatures that lived in the land of always winter, beyond the wall. Born of powerful and untested magic, they possessed the ability to manipulate ice and cold weather wherever they went. The Walkers were created by the children of the forest to protect them from the first men with whom they were at war, and did so by plunging a piece of dragon glass into the hearts of men they had captured. Though their creation was intended for the sole purpose of protecting the children of the forest, the Walkers eventually rebelled and soon became the most feared creatures in all of Westeros. The White Walkers had pale whitish grey skin, which appeared to look stretched across their bodies, giving them a mummified appearance despite their overall bulky size. They were much stronger than humans, capable of sending large men reeling back many feet with a single blow. The White Walkers were also resistant to fire due to the extreme cold that they radiated. Primarily referred to as the others in the novels, the name White Walkers was used for the television series to distinguish them and avoid confusion with the others that were featured in the series Lost. In the novels, Martin had described them as tall, gaunt, and hard as old bones, with flesh pale as milk and eyes deeper and bluer than any humans. Always accompanied by intense cold, they wore reflective armor and wielded thin crystal swords that were capable of shattering steel. And though most of us associated them with death, Martin saw them as strange, beautiful things that had a different sort of life, describing them as inhuman, elegant, and dangerous. The Walkers also spoke in a language of their own, which sounded like the cracking of ice on a lake. Few in number and led by the Night King, who was the first of them, the White Walkers had the incredible ability to resurrect the dead to serve as their whites, which enabled them to amass an incredible army of undead. Their numbers would increase rapidly as any fallen foe, be they human, giants, or even dragons as we found out in Season 7, could be turned into undead whites to serve in their army. Though the White Walkers have these incredible abilities, it's the Night King and him alone who had the ability to create other White Walkers from people who were alive, and this was seen in the episode Oathkeeper, which showed the Night King transforming one of Craster's infant children into a White Walker. What's most terrifying about the Night King is that, unlike other White Walkers, he had the incredible power to raise thousands of undead whites simply by lifting his arms. Also, it's important to note that Craster regularly gave up his infant children to the White Walkers in an agreement that left him and the rest of his kin unharmed, which indicates that the Walkers were intelligent beings capable of reason and mercy. Sam also witnessed this mercy when a White Walker leading an army of whites spotted him behind a boulder and spared his life, choosing to push on forward instead. Invulnerable to most weapons, the White Walkers could only be killed when struck with weapons made of either dragon glass or Valyrian steel. Upon being stabbed by dragon glass, a White Walker's body would begin to freeze into ice directly from the point of impact, before the Walker cracked and fell apart. Valyrian steel also had the same effect, but worked more rapidly, with the ability to shatter White Walkers with a single blow. The unique steel was also able to parry with the ice weapons of White Walkers, unlike normal steel, which would simply shatter upon contact. Their undead whites were also seen possessing incredible strength greater than most men, and were also incredibly resilient to damage and would continue to function even with the loss of limbs, which could only be destroyed through fire or with a piece of dragon glass to the heart. Although the White Walkers had an incredibly large number of undead soldiers, it must be remembered that most of them were created by the Night King himself, which meant that destroying him had the potential to wipe the entire species out. More than 8,000 years prior to Robert's rebellion, the first men and the children of the forest, who had been at war for thousands of years, had eventually reached an agreement known as the Pact of the Isle of Faces. Finding fair terms for a peaceful coexistence, the children were able to live in the standing forests and the first men were able to settle in the open lands. Unfortunately for both sides, the children of the forest eventually lost control of the White Walkers, and the entire world was forced to experience the longest winter in history, lasting for an entire generation. In the darkness and cold of the long night, the White Walkers then first descended upon Westeros from the north, killing all in their path and using their powers to reanimate the dead into whites to fight on their behalf. The people of Westeros eventually rallied against the White Walkers in a skirmish known as the War of the Dawn, defeating the Walkers and driving them back into the land of always winter. The legends also noted that the wall was then constructed under the guidance of Brandon Stark, also known as Bran the Builder, prior to reigning as the first king in the north. The wall was built using the aid of magic, giants, ropes, and pulley systems, which were used to carry and hoist up massive slates of ice, while the Children of the Forest also reportedly assisted this process using magic. The Night's Watch was then founded to guard the wall, and despite all of this history, few people who lived in the current age actually believed of their existence, until of course they were unfortunate enough to meet one in the flesh. Given that the White Walkers have a capacity for both mercy and violence, I'm interested in finding out whether the finale will be resolved with an all-out war, or whether our expectations will be subverted as they have been time after time, with the series concluding with another pact, this time between the White Walkers and the race of men. Although it may seem like George R.R. Martin loves war and conflict, he has openly stated this isn't the case, and whenever war is waged by good people in his books, it always just ends up causing suffering on both sides. The pale creatures are fighting for something, and I think that revelation will coincide with the resolution of this incredible series. Well, that's all for today, folks. Thanks to all of you guys who suggested we take a look at the White Walkers featured in Game of Thrones. If there's any other content you'd like me to check out, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.